Last Monday, the price of one American dollar in Tehran hit 2,020,000 rials. That is a record. It has never cost that much. And on that same Monday, in Washington, the Wall Street Journal quietly connected two things this Treasury has been building all year. Two things that, put together, answer a question almost nobody in this country is asking out loud. Here is the question: who is going to buy America's debt? Not this month, for the next 30 years. Somebody has to show up at every auction and hand the government money. And the countries that used to do it are slowing down. The answer this administration landed on is not a country. It is not a bank. It is not a pension fund. I will show you exactly who it is and show you the paperwork, because they did not hide it. They published it. I am also going to show you why this is the best argument for Bitcoin I have seen all year. It did not come from a Bitcoin person. It came from the Treasury. But first, what this costs you. If you have $100,000 sitting in Treasury bills or a bank CD this morning, the Bank for International Settlements has already measured what this plan does to your interest. About $50 a year, gone. If you are a retiree with $500,000 in short-term government paper, call it $250 a year. I am telling you the small number first on purpose. It is the honest one, and it is the part they can measure. The big number is what happens to the dollar in your pocket. That one has no floor under it. On August 17th, the Treasury Department announced the rules for something called the Genius Act. That is the stablecoin law. A stablecoin is a digital dollar. Somebody takes your dollar, holds it, and gives you a token on your phone that is supposed to be worth exactly $1 forever. It is not Bitcoin. Hold on to that difference because it is the whole video. Think of a coat check. You hand over the coat, they hand you a ticket. The ticket is not the coat. The ticket is a promise that somebody still has your coat. Bitcoin is not a ticket. With Bitcoin, nobody is holding anything for you. The entire law is about what that somebody is required to keep in the closet. Here is Secretary Bessent in Treasury's own announcement that day. Quote, "Treasury welcomes input from stakeholders as we work to provide the regulatory certainty businesses need to innovate and grow in America, cement the role of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency, and keep America the crypto capital of the world." End quote. Read the middle part again. Cement the role of the dollar as the world's reserve currency. That is not a man regulating an industry. That is a man using one. On August 18th, the rule published in the Federal Register. That is the government's official newspaper. Public comment closes October 19th. The hard deadline is July 18th, 2028. Then on August 20th, Bessent went on CNBC and described what he is doing with the debt itself. He is buying back long-term bonds and paying for it by selling more short-term bills. He called it a Treasury twist. 4 days later, the Journal put the two halves side by side. Here is what the stablecoin law demands. If you issue a digital dollar in America, the money behind it has to sit in a very short list of things: actual dollars, insured bank deposits, Treasury bills that mature in 93 days or less, or overnight loans backed by those same bills. 93 days. That is the trick. So the Treasury Secretary is shortening America's debt. And the law he is implementing forces a brand new buyer to hold exactly the short paper he is now selling more of. He is not just finding a buyer. He is writing the buyer's shopping list. That 93 days is why I built my own dashboard. I got tired of chasing this across 9 websites at 11 at night. On June 19th, I published a video called "The Genius Act Will Send $3.7 trillion into US Treasuries." 780 people watched it, and I did not predict that number. I read it. It came from Scott Bessent's own post from June of 2025, where he wrote that a growing stablecoin market would, quote, "drive demand from the private sector for US Treasuries." So this was never a secret. Almost nobody covered it because it sounded boring. What changed last week is that it stopped being a sentence and became a rule with a deadline. That is the difference between a man saying something and a man filing something. I know what a lot of you are typing right now. You are typing, Tim, the rest of the world is running away from the dollar. That is the whole point of BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, they are building their own currency. That is the smartest objection to all of this. Let me take it seriously, then show you why it does not matter. First, the BRICS currency does not exist. It is not late. It is not coming. On August 7th, 18 days ago, India, which chairs BRICS this year, killed it in public. India's Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, said this out loud in Jaipur. Quote, India is not in favor of a BRICS currency. We do not support the introduction of any such BRICS currency scheme. India opposes it. End quote. The chairman of the club said no. Second, the dollar did not go down. The International Monetary Fund tracks what every central bank on earth actually holds. Their newest reading, published July 1st, says the dollar's share went up to 57%. And I have to own something because I said the opposite in July. On July 15th, I told you every tick below 57% was another depositor walking out of the bank. It ticked back up. I was reading a wobble as a trend. What I still think is right is the 25-year direction. So here is the honest version. 25 years ago, that number was about 71%. So the dollar has been bleeding. But do the arithmetic. Roughly 0.6% a year. At that pace, the dollar is still the world's money in the year 2080. That is not a collapse. That is a slow leak. And a slow leak gives a man time to move some savings somewhere that cannot leak. Third, look at who is supposed to replace it. China's currency is under 2% of world reserves, lower than in 2022, and Japan's yen has lost 31% against the dollar in 5 years. 5 years ago, it took 110 yen to buy a dollar. Today, 159. Put that on a kitchen table. Say you retired in Japan in 2021 with the equivalent of $300,000 and kept it in yen, like a sensible person. You did nothing wrong. And about $90,000 of what you could buy from the rest of the world is simply gone. Nobody rang a bell. It leaked out while you slept. But all of that is still the wrong argument, because governments are not the customer. Washington does not have to convince a single foreign government to use the dollar. They already have the customers, and have had them for 50 years. The customers are the people who live inside those countries. Go back to Tehran. 2,020,000 rials for $1 as of Monday. Iran's central bank posts an official rate of about 1.5 million, but the Associated Press said it plainly in their own story. The market rate is the one most Iranians actually pay. Nobody has to sell an Iranian on the dollar. He is already trying to buy one, and has been for years. The only thing standing between that man and a dollar is that he has to find a guy. He has to physically find somebody holding dollars in a shop, in person, and take whatever price is chalked on the wall that day. Now flip it around. What would Japan have to do to get that man to save in yen? They would have to convince him. They would have to make him want it. Nobody has to convince anybody to want a dollar. And China knows it. China does not compete for savers. China builds a fence. A Chinese citizen can convert only $50,000 a year, and since January 1st, any transfer out over about $1,000 gets his identity checked, with records kept 10 years. That is not a country winning an argument. That is a country locking a door. Let me make this real, because I watched a piece of it myself. Venezuela's own central bank says prices rose 580% in the year through July. Independent trackers say 739%. Here's what that does to a person. Last August, it took about 135 bolivars to buy a dollar. Today, it takes 785. So a Venezuelan who did the responsible thing, who saved the equivalent of $1,000 in his own country's money 12 months ago, has about $172 left. He did not spend it. Nobody robbed him. It evaporated while it sat there. And here is the detail that stopped me cold. In Caracas, when people quote the real street rate, about 920 bolivars, they are not quoting a guy in an alley anymore. They are quoting the price of Tether on a phone app. The parallel dollar in Venezuela is already a stablecoin. Nobody passed a law. And the same app that sells that man a digital dollar sells him Bitcoin, one screen over. Now, Mexico, because I lived there, small business owners told me the same thing over and over. When a customer pays in American dollars, those dollars go in the drawer and stay there. The pesos are what you spend. The dollars are what you keep. Mexico is not falling apart. The peso is actually stronger than it was 5 years ago, about 17 to the dollar today versus 20 in 2021. I am not going to hide that from you. What Mexico has is a wall around physical cash dollars. Since 2010, a Mexican with a bank account can deposit at most 4,000 American dollars in cash per month. If you are not a customer of that bank, $300 a day, $1,500 a month. Mexican analysts say those rules split the dollar market in two and shrank the cash side to something they call minuscule. So when that shopkeeper puts your dollars in a drawer instead of the bank, he is not being clever. He is obeying a limit. That is the shape of it everywhere. The demand is already there. What is missing is a pipe. If you want to know what inflation is quietly costing your own cash, in dollars, per year, my money quiz will tell you in about 2 minutes at timtalksfinance.com/members. If I only give you my side, you should not trust me. So here is the best case against all of it. First, Venezuela is actually using fewer dollars than it used to, not more. A firm called Eco Analytica found only about 16% of retail purchases happen in foreign money. Over 80% are in bolivars, the lowest in the 6 years they have counted it. So this is not a ratchet. It goes both ways, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. Second, governments are trying to stop this, and some of them are winning. China banned it outright. Nigeria blocked the big exchanges at the phone network level and kicked its own currency off the peer-to-peer apps. Turkey capped stablecoin transfers at $3,000 a day. India built a tax wall that eats about half of any gain. And Europe wrote a ceiling into law, capping a non-euro digital dollar used for payments at 200 million euros a day. Cross it, and you stop issuing. Tether was pulled off European exchanges in March of 2025. Third, and this is the real limit, so hear it clearly, this does not fix the debt. The Bank for International Settlements measured what stablecoin money does to Treasury yields, about 0.05% on 3-month bills for roughly 2 weeks, and nothing on the long end. Stablecoins buy bills, they do not buy the 30-year. So this does not pay for anything, it buys time. And one country cuts the other way, so I will say it. Argentina scrapped its currency controls and is letting banks offer this. Some open the door, most defend it. But here is why I still think it works. They do not need every country. They need enough of them. And they need a device. There are about 1.3 billion adults on Earth with no bank account. Of those, 530 million already carry a smartphone, not billions. I want to give you the true number because the true one is big enough. 530 million people who cannot open a bank account but can download an app. And that same app has Bitcoin on it. It is already moving past savings and into commerce. Stablecoin payments run about $390 billion a year, and roughly 60% is businesses paying other businesses. It grew over 700% in a single year, and it is not hedge funds. The firm that measures it says it is mostly small and medium-sized businesses. That is the last piece Washington needs. Once a shop in Lagos can pay a supplier in Shenzhen in digital dollars on a Tuesday afternoon, world trade runs on American money by default. Nobody signs a treaty, it just happens. So, who is going to buy America's debt for the next 30 years? It is not China, it is not Japan, it is not a sovereign wealth fund. It is a shopkeeper in Caracas with a cracked phone who has never heard of a treasury bill and who just wants his savings to still be worth something on Friday. He buys a digital dollar. And the company that sold it to him is required by American law to turn around and buy short-term American government debt with his money. He is funding the United States government. He does not know it. He would probably be fine with it if you told him. That is the machine, filed on August 18th. And I do not think that is evil. If I were him, I would buy the dollar too. A dollar that loses 2 or 3% a year beats one that loses 83. But here is the thing about the ticket he is holding. On April 23rd of this year, the Treasury's Sanctions Office flagged some wallets connected to Iran's central bank. Tether, the company, froze $344 million of digital dollars. Not seized later, not argued in court. Froze that afternoon. They did it again on July 16th. Another 131 million. And this is the company's own number from their own press release. They have frozen more than $4.4 billion in total, over $2.1 billion of it for United States authorities. Put that in a size a person can hold. That is the life savings of 40,000 families with $100,000 each, switched off from a keyboard. Tether's own words, quote, USD-T is not a safe haven for illicit activity, end quote. I am not defending sanctioned money. My point is the mechanism. That digital dollar on that man's phone is not cash. Cash in your pocket does not have a phone number in Washington. That token is a line in a company's database, and somebody can change the line. And it is written into the law. A foreign company can only sell these things here if it is based in a country that is not under full American sanctions, and if it has, quote, the technological capability to comply, and complies with the terms of any lawful order. Any lawful order. That is not a bug. That is the product. So look at what they built. The Iranian with 2 million rials most needs a dollar, and he is exactly the man the statute says cannot legally have one. This is where I land every time, because the road keeps going to the same place. They are going to put everything on these rails. Your house, your stocks, your bonds, your savings. That is not a prediction. That is a build schedule. And this stablecoin rule is one brick of it. Now run one test on every single one of them. Who can make more of it? A digital dollar has a company that can print more and freeze yours. A treasury bill has a government that can issue more. A bank deposit has a bank. A tokenized house has a registry and a taxman. A digital currency from a central bank has a committee that decides what you are allowed to buy. Every exit they are offering you has an owner. Every ticket has a man behind the counter. And notice something. They did not fight Bitcoin. The last administration fought Bitcoin. This one looked at what people were already doing on those rails and, instead of banning the plumbing, annexed it. They took the pipes and left Bitcoin alone. Because the pipes were never the point. The issuer was. There is exactly one thing riding on those same pipes, onto that same cracked phone, with nobody behind the counter. That thing is Bitcoin. 21 million Bitcoin. That is it. That is all the Bitcoin there will ever be. Not 21 million in one. There is no company that can freeze your Bitcoin because a wallet got flagged. There is no secretary who decides whether your country is comparable enough to hold Bitcoin. There is no lawful order that creates more Bitcoin. There is no Bitcoin central bank, no Bitcoin board, no Bitcoin press release. There are no Bitcoin servers to switch off. There is only a protocol. That is the entire argument for Bitcoin, and it fits in one sentence. Every other kind of money on earth has a man who can make more of it. Bitcoin does not have a man. Now let me be fair about Bitcoin, because credibility is the only thing I actually sell here. Bitcoin moves around. A lot. Bitcoin can fall 30 or 40%, and Bitcoin has, more than once, and Bitcoin will again. That is real, and I am not going to talk you out of it. But there is a difference between a toll and a theft. The toll is what Bitcoin charges you on the way in. It is loud, it hurts, and it announces itself. The theft is what happened to that Venezuelan who did nothing at all, and to that Japanese retiree who did nothing at all, and to an American holding cash while the ruler quietly gets shorter. The theft is silent. That is what makes it work. And listen, the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank for central banks, is not on my side. They wrote that stablecoins fail all three tests of real money. They called what is happening to poorer countries, quote, stealth dollarization, and warned it cost those countries control of their own money. I agree with their facts. I just draw the opposite conclusion. They think the machine should be contained. I think the machine is coming, and the only question left is what you are holding when it arrives. I am not going to tell you to buy Bitcoin today. There are no certainties, only probabilities. I will tell you that I own Bitcoin and why, and then you do your own arithmetic. Because a man who can talk you into Bitcoin can talk you out of Bitcoin. And I would rather hand you the math and let you walk through the door yourself. They already told us the plan. On August 17th in a press release. On August 18th in the Federal Register. In Bessent's own post more than a year ago. Nobody hid anything. They just assumed you would not read it. You read it. Now you decide what to do about it. If you want to see what this is costing your own cash in real dollars, take the 2-minute money quiz at timtalksfinance.com/members. Free, no credit card. It shows your net worth, what inflation is taking from your savings every year, and one move worth considering. I built it because I got tired of doing this math on a napkin. Public comment on that rule closes October 19th. The Senate votes on the next piece September 15th. I will be reading both. I am Tim, and this is Tim Talks Finance.